Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host, Gersh1, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue with part 4 of the Black Crusade. So let's get into 40 facts about the 13th Black Crusade. With warp storms rendering astropathic communication erratic, the Segmentum Obscurus High Command continued to experience enormous difficulties coordinating command and control of its forces. Communications from the more distant sectors was particularly affected. The Imperial commanders were advised that those communications they did receive from distant sources were not to be trusted. A particularly impulsive report from the Scarus sector indicated that in addition to chaos attacks, the defenders had faced the menace of the orcs. After action reports cited Mordax Prime as the initial focus of a massive orc incursion, which occurred at the same time as the Chaos Assault was first hitting the Segmentum. If this were just an isolated case, High Command would normally have written off the communication as misinformation caused by inexperienced troops facing an enemy they had no experience with. However, every major star system in the Scarus sector soon logged similar reports, so they had to be taken seriously until more detailed information was forthcoming. On Cadia, Lord Creed led his Cadian 8th, now being referred to as the Lord Castellan's Own, on an operation to hunt down and exterminate a group of Volscani cataphracts who, unknown to the Cadian High Command, had escaped the chaos of the Tyrock fields and were attempting to link up with elements of Abaddon's invasion forces. The Lord had always been known as the officer who would fight at the front line with no hesitation whatsoever, leading his men and setting the standard for his junior officers. The 8th Cadian brought the enemy to battle at Khazar Vazan in the shadow of the Cadian pylon that dominated the Vanzi moors. It later proved fortunate that Creed had wasted no time whatsoever in launching his assault, for the Chaos Space Marine force were believed to be the vanguard of the larger Black Legion warband. It was said that the true test of a general was the ability to disengage in the face of a superior foe, and the 8th Cadian regrouped to head back out onto the moors to face the Black Legion on more favorable terms. Following the evacuation and subsequent destruction of St. Josemain's Hope, in order to deny the forces of the Despoiler a forward staging point, Imperium defenders initially rallied well, falling back in a good order to key points in the Cadian system. Imperial morale was bolstered by a bold series of counterattacks, but these successes were to prove short-lived, and the Despoiler had committed yet more of his diabolical forces to the Cadian system. With the forces of disorder now fully committed to the siege of Cadia, the beleaguered defenders could only pray help arrive soon, before all was lost. The forces of disorder was an uneasy and very brief alliance between a warband of World Eater Chaos Space Marines, led by Lord Cruel, known as the Blood Legion of Khorne, and the orcs serving Warboss Gorguts Ed Unter. The two factions joined forces in order to repel an incursion of the Imperial Guard on the ice world of Loran 5. Infighting between the orcs and the World Eaters was common, only stopping in order to combat their shattered enemy, the Imperial Guard. Cadian High Command eventually received word that the fleet of Iron Knights and Imperial Fists, chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, had established contact. Lord Creed was also in conference with the Great Wolf Logan Grimnar of the Space Wolf chapter, planning how best the Space Marine might be deployed. Though the Cadian Sector High Command held no authority over the Adeptus Astartes, Creed had indicated his support for Grimnar should he establish himself as a nominal head of the Space Marine chapter operation in the region. Captain Echion of the Patriarchs of Elixis, commander of the Ultramarines Honor Guard, a specialist company of the Ultramarines that had been stationed at the Cadian Gate for many millennia, rotating officers and warriors from the Ultramarines companies elsewhere, and also drawing from the Ultramarine successor chapters. He too voiced his support of this arrangement. The Cadian High Command also received word from the Adeptus Mechanicus Temple at Khazar Galan that the Ordo Reductor consisting of ancient and venerated siege engines akin to the dreadnoughts of the Astartes, was to reinforce the Cadian defenders there. Unfortunately, not all the news that reached the Cadian High Command at this time was good. The situation of the world of Lilithar had taken a drastic turn for the worst. In an attempt to bring to ground the heretic calling himself the voice of the Emperor, the Legio Ignatum of the Collegia Titanica, the Death Spectre Space Marine chapter, and the Jurana Dragonus Imperial Guard regiments laid siege to that world's capital city. Soon after the arrival of these forces, a large proportion of Lilithar's native defense force and populace rebelled and took up arms against their government, slaughtering the planetary governor and his staff in an orgy of bloodletting. The Lilithar security forces and the Adeptus Arbites reacted with commendable speed, breaking up suspected chaos cults and anti-imperial organizations, but once again Lilithar was plunged into anarchy. It concerned the Cadian High Command greatly that they were still unable to control Lilithar. Even with the presence of the Titan legions and chapter of the Adeptus Astartes on the world, the rebels continued their action, and the voice of the Emperor continued broadcasting his lies across the region. Many within the Cadian High Command continued to labor on an analysis of the Traitor Legion's attack. This task was ordered directly by the Lord Creed, and had brought about a degree of conflict within the High Command, for Commander Arzel of the Dark Angels chapter heard of this endeavor and ordered it to cease, stating that the actions of the traitors were the business of the Astartes themselves and were of no concern to mortal units. Creed rejected this assertion as patently ridiculous under the circumstances of the current crisis, and Logan Grimnar agreed with him. As a result, Azrael soon withdrew what cooperation the Dark Angels had been prepared to offer. Multiple incidents of new chaos incursions continued to be logged within the Cadian High Command, the greater number of which involved the Night Lord's Traitor Legion. Imperial analysis had reached the conclusion that this legion had been employed in a vanguard role throughout the early stage of the Chaos Invasion, and it had been extremely effective in its mission. The Night Lords were notorious for the cruelty of their assault. The archenemy was believed to have utilized the Night Lords in this role in order to create panic in the Imperial civilized population as a result of the brutality of their attack. The people of many worlds were consumed by panic that their planet would be the next to suffer at the hands of the Night Lords. While the Night Lords had been deployed to serve as terror troops, the insidious Astartes of the Alpha Legion were employed by Abaddon as infiltrators. This particular force was one that the officers of the Cadian High Command had been briefed on by the Ordo Malleus, who considered their activities of dire import. Reports of scattered enemy attacks upon key Imperial facilities had been continuously received by the Cadian High Command, but these minor attacks had seemed to pale in significance when compared to the overall scale of the Chaos Invasion. However, closer analysis along with the information received from the Inquisition, the Imperial forces believed that these attacks actually represented the work of the Alpha Legion. Further investigation revealed that a number of rear communication facilities were amongst the target hit. One could not help but wonder whether these objectives were designed to hinder the movements of the Imperial reinforcement into the region. The Emperor's children, led by the immortal favored Chaos Champion of Slaanesh, Lucius the Eternal, feasted well upon the agony of the population of the world of Belisar. The Plague Marines of the Death Guard stalked across the battlefield of the planet Amstel, and ground beneath their feet cluttered with the unique corpses of those who had the plague of unbelief. In the wake of these traitor legions comes the hordes of the lost and the damned, traitor guard, mutants, chaos cultists, and human fiends of the very worst aspect who despoiled the domain of mankind by their very presence. While the war continued to go badly upon the surface of many worlds in the Cadian system, in particular St. Josemane's Hope and Solar Mariatus, the war in space was fought more on the Imperium's terms. The Cadian system had been the focus of the Abaddon primary fleet action, and the Imperium's fortunes there changed from day to day. The situation was highly fluid, and the chaotic naval forces found themselves stretched to exploit the victories they had won. Although the Imperial Navy's fleet could not hope to oppose those of the archenemy in and around the orbital space of most of the worlds of the Cadian system, they continued to hold on to control of the inner system space lanes within the Cadian sector. The Imperium could not under any circumstance afford to let their guard waver, for it was upon one of these routes that they hoped to bring the planet killer to battle. To let it pass was too terrible a failure to contemplate. A fleet the size of which had not been seen since the end of the Gothic War, 8 standard centuries earlier, had been dispatched from the Cyprus Mundi and arrived at Bellis Corona in preparation for a massive Imperial counteroffensive into the Cadian Gate. The arrival of this vast armada allowed those Imperial vessels that had been fighting continuously since the beginning of the invasion a brief respite. Severely depleted ships were bolstered with indiscriminate press ganging and hasty repairs, and refits were undertaken on those vessels most needing of them. The Imperial Reinforcements were split into battle groups, each tasked with bolstering the defensive in a specific sector of the Segmentum Obscurus. The region around the Eye of Terror encompasses many millions of cubic light years, and only by the concentrated application of resources in those areas in the most desperate need could the Imperial Navy hope to make inroads and stall, and eventually repel the Chaos war fleets plaguing the region. During the latter stages of the campaign, when Abaddon's fleet was seen approaching the agri world of Lortox, the Ultramarine Honor Company distinguished itself with a bold, space-borne counter-assault against Abaddon's fleet as the planet killer closed within the Imperial world on the outskirts of the Agrippina sector. The action bought Lortox planetary defense forces time to evacuate a significant portion of the population before the world was destroyed by Abaddon's horrific weapon of planetary destruction. The Ultramarine Honor Company managed to successfully cripple the planet killer, but the massive vessel still had enough power to limp away. In the aftermath of the Lortox evacuation, the Ultramarines Honor Company redeployed to Cadia and the surrounding star systems, launching a series of operations to hinder Abaddon's forces as they assaulted the Imperial positions. These attacks included a series of highly successful boarding actions against the lumbering space hulks being used to transport vast hordes of the archenemy's troops to reinforce Abaddon's siege of Cadia. It was a fool's dream to hope that the planet killer could be found before it was brought to bear upon the Imperial forces. Without warning, it appeared in orbit over the world of Macaria. Though many could scarcely believe it, the world was destroyed by the massive vessel. It was lost, and with millions of loyal and faithful subjects to the Emperor dead at the hands of the despoiler and his despicable weapon. Despite the success of the early weeks of the invasion, many had come to believe that this war might not be won in the short term. Where at first the Imperial forces fought to repulse Abaddon's assault, to deny him foothold upon Imperial worlds, they now fought to keep him from overwhelming them entirely. And those were 40 facts about Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Now please subscribe to the channel to get the next part in this series. It's going to be a very long series because Abaddon loves to take his sweet ass time to not win anything. No, I'm just kidding. If you're a chaos lover, aka a heretic, aka the worst player in Warhammer 40K, no, I'm just kidding. Those are Tau players, or maybe Necron players, I'm not sure. But either way, subscribe to the channel. I forgot what I was saying already. Please comment down below and let me know what topic you guys want to hear about. We've talked about pretty much every race except, I think, Kroot. So we might make some Kroot videos, but it's all up to you guys. Comment down below, share this with your friends, and you guys are awesome. I'll catch you in the next one. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.